What's up, everybody? I just clocked off. It's time for a little classic stuff for me, some stuff that I really enjoy, a little cross sport comparison. Um, I've been listening to some stuff recently about the NFL and about college football, and it seems like in both of those sports, it's not entirely clear who the best team is. In college football, Ohio State's been ranked number one the entire year, just kind of by default, because they won the national championship last year. They beat Texas to start off the season. That was a big game. But they've really had kind of just like a normal Ohio State season, kind of like before the Big Ten expanded. They would always do this where they would just, they would play one good out of conference team toward the beginning of the season, and they'd usually beat them, and then they would just kind of trample over everybody else in their conference the rest of the way, and that's kind of what they've done. But they haven't. It doesn't feel like they have like an elite win. Texas is obviously a good team, but they don't have, they're going to be on the bubble for the college football playoff, right? The NFL is kind of the same way. A lot of the teams that everyone agreed were good and has agreed are good over the last few seasons are not as good as they've been. Buffalo is good. But Kansas City is 6-6. Baltimore is 6-6. Really the only, the Eagles are still, they're like 8-4. They're still good, but they haven't looked that great. Really the only team that was really good last year and everybody kind of agreed would be really good this year and actually has been really good this year is the Rams. But the Rams are 9-3. They don't have a crazy record or anything. And the teams that do have crazy records are Denver and New England. Denver was good but not awesome last year. They made the playoffs. And then New England has turned it around really dramatically. This is their first year of being good in a little while. So that's all kind of set up, kind of an elaborate setup, I guess, now that I look at the timer on here. But it's kind of an elaborate setup to talk about the sports that I care about more, which are the NBA and the NHL, where there is a very clear number one team, and there's a very clear next tier of teams behind them as well. So in the NBA, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are the defending champions. And in the NHL, it's my team, the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche are in kind of an interesting position, obviously not defending champions, but it's the first full season that they've had Gabe Landeskog back on their team. So watching them and bearing that in mind, they're kind of carrying themselves like a defending champion, which is really interesting. So looking at both these teams, the Avalanche and the Thunder, they're both kicking ass. And so I wanted to see which of them is having a better start. So I'm going to start by looking at OKC, because as much as it pains me to admit, they are probably the right answer here. Right now they are 20-1. The last team to start the year 18-1 was the Golden State Warriors in 2016, who were also defending champions, and they went on to, of course, break the regular season wins record, make it all the way to Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and then lose. So, obviously no one expects OKC to keep up this pace, but that's the company that they're in. If you look at their stats a little bit, SGA is second in the league in scoring. He's, of course, the defending MVP. For the team, they are plus 15.2 in net rating, which is first by a significant margin. Houston is second at plus 12. Denver is third at plus 9.7. Those two teams plus Detroit are that next tier of teams that I talked about. And OKC is way out in front of them in net margin. They are also way out in front in defense. They're 5th in the league in offensive rating, but on defense they're at a net rating of a defensive rating of 103.6 points per 100 possessions. Houston is second at 110.3. So they are way, way, way out in front of the field. If you compare them to prior years, it's the best defensive rating since 2016 when San Antonio, I think San Antonio had a defensive rating of like 98. It was something absolutely insane. Obviously, league-wide offenses have gotten way better since then, so it's not a totally clear comparison, but they have the best rating since then. Last year, Oklahoma City's defensive rating was 107.5 points per 100. The year before that, Minnesota was first at 108.4 points per 100. So this is a crazy good defense. They're way out in front of the field. They're way better than they were last year thus far. And even last year, they were better than the best defense in prior years. So their defense is insane. They have one loss on the season, as I said. That was by 2 points on the road in Portland. Portland has struggled recently, but they have talent. They seem like they're a pretty decent team. They've also played Portland 2 more times after that. They beat them by 27 at home and then beat them again on the road by 8. So they certainly made up for that loss. Their average margin of victory is about 16 points. And they're doing all of this without their second best player. J-Dub has not played a single game yet. And it's kind of a good place to transition back over to the Avalanche, because the Avalanche are 18-1-6. Obviously, the standings are formatted a little bit differently in hockey. If you go to overtime and lose in overtime, you get a point. So they have 18 regulation wins, 1 regulation loss, and 6 overtime or shootout losses. The 1 regulation loss was by 1 goal, so they have not lost any games by more than 1 goal up to now. And they have not had their number 1 goalie most of the way, and their number 2 goalie, Scott Wedgwood, is in the top 5 in the league in goals against average and save percentage, and he's first in wins with, I believe he has 18 wins, I want to say, but I have to double check that. But yeah, so they're doing this without one of their biggest players as well. Of course, Mackenzie Blackwood is back now, but he didn't play until well into the season. Look at the team overall. They're, kind of the NHL equivalent of net rating is total goals for and total goals allowed. They are first in the league in both goals for and goals allowed. They lead both of those by more than 10 goals. So they're way, way out ahead. And even more impressive than that, their goal differential, their net, their the NHL equivalent of net rating, is plus 51. And they're even farther out from the field than OKC is in the NBA, because the next best teams in terms of total goal differential are plus 22, which is the Dallas Stars. After that, at plus 21, plus 19, and plus 16 are the next 3 teams after them. For some context, last year, the Winnipeg Jets won the President's Trophy. They ended the year at plus 85. And then when the Boston Bruins broke the single-season points record, they finished the year at plus 127. And, kind of averaging this out over, in terms of per-game averages, the Avalanche are winning by an average of 4.1 to 2.1 goals. So they are doubling up their opponents on average, which is pretty crazy. The teams behind them, as I mentioned, the Dallas Stars, the Minnesota Wild are also a few points behind them, or behind Dallas. there sucks that the Avs have to share a division with the number 2 and number 3 teams in the league, but that's just how it is. And then the best teams in the East are the New Jersey Devils and the Carolina Hurricanes. The Avs lost in overtime against Dallas and Minnesota and Carolina and New Jersey. And then they beat New Jersey 8-4 a couple of days later. So they got some revenge on them. But overall, they don't have the same revenge factor as Oklahoma City has. But they've played a good schedule. The two teams, both teams are kind of middle of the pack in terms of strength of schedule. But I mean, the stats are hard to deny, and this is probably my favorite stat of all. Actually, is that the Avs' top pair of defensemen and top line of forwards are the top 5 in the league in plus minus, and Nathan MacKinnon leads the league in points and goals and plus minus. So he has been, by pretty much by any major statistical measure, I mean, it's hard to say that he hasn't been the best player in the league thus far. So, looking at these all together, the Avalanche, if they kept this pace, they would break the points record. The overtime losses are kind of a cheat code in hockey in terms of gaining regular season points. So they have that going for them. But I don't really think it's like a hacky thing, though. I mean, they can just score goals whenever they need to. Like, they've developed these pet plays that they can just kind of go to over and over. And, that top 5 of McKinnon, Natchez, Lehkonen, and Makar and Taves, like, if they need a goal, they just get an offensive zone face-off, and then they put that line out there, and a lot of times they get it done. So I don't think it's fake. Like, I think that they can just turn it on when they need to. So it's pretty encouraging as a fan. All told, though, I mean, it's a lot. The standards of excellence in terms of records is a lot different in hockey and in basketball. Like, Golden State holds the wins record in the NBA at 73-9. When Boston broke the points record a couple of years ago, they were, I believe, 65-12-5. So, you're just not gonna win as many games in hockey. There's just more parity. It's a more random sport. People play harder night to night as well. I really think that's a factor. But so with that in mind, it's an apples and oranges thing. But I think you got to go with OKC. I think you got to give the advantage to them. I mean, the fact that they're doing all this without their second best player from last year, it's impressive that the Avalanche have played so well. Not having Mackenzie Blackwood for a long stretch, Scott Wedgwood has filled in really, really well, and he got a new contract because of that, which I'm really happy to see. But yeah, I mean, OKC is just they're absolutely crushing everybody they play. It's apples to oranges, obviously, but I mean, an average margin of victory in the NBA of 16 points. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. So I'm going to give the edge to them. I really want to give it to the Avs just because they've been so good. I think both teams are going to be legit contenders. I don't think this is like a, regular season theater from either of these teams. They're really, really, really good. But yeah, I think you got to give a little bit of an edge to OKC. Their defense is just crazy. I mean, their defense is unlike anything that I've ever seen right now. So I'm going to give them the slight advantage. Very, very slight. The Avalanche have been very, very good. They're a lot of fun to watch. But there you have it.